The Made in India light combat aircraft, built for the Indian Air Force and built to Indian specifications for requirements as diverse as the burning Rajasthan desert and the high altitude Siachen glacier. Prime Minister Narendra Modi mentioned this on Friday as he symbolically presented a model of the light combat helicopter to the Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Vikram Chaudhary, in the backdrop of the historic Jhansi fort. Abhishek Bhalla gets us more.
India gets its own Desi war choppers, flying missions in Ladakh since August 2020, now formally handed over to the Indian Air Force. Prime Minister Modi symbolically presents a model to Indian Air Chief Marshal Vikram Chaudhary at Jhansi. Mega Atmanirbhar defence push on Rani Lakshmi Bai's birth anniversary. It is India's fearsome hell from the skies, built for kill at Ladakh and beyond.
It has been deployed last year as a user trial during the period when we had a standoff with China also. So it has operated well.
Armed with rockets, cannons and missiles, the light combat helicopters developed by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited is being hailed as a game changer.
ये ऐसा लाइट कॉम्बैट हेलीकॉप्टर है जो करीब 16,500 फीट की ऊंचाई पर उड़ सकता है। ये नए भारत की ताकत है, आत्मनिर्भर भारत की उपलब्धि है।
But this was not the only marquee event on the final day of Rashtra Raksha Samarpan Parv. The Prime Minister also formally handed over indigenous drones designed and developed by Indian startups to Army Chief General Manoj Mukund Narwane.
हमारी पहचान एक ही बन गई, हथियार खरीदार देश। हमारी गिनती उसी में रह रही थी, लेकिन आज देश का मंत्र है मेक इन इंडिया, मेक फॉर वर्ल्ड।
The electronic warfare system Shakti, designed and developed by DRDO's Defense Electronics Research Labs, was formally inducted in the Navy. The Shakti will provide an electronic layer of defense against modern radars and anti-ship missiles to ensure electronic dominance and survivability in the maritime battlefield. This system will replace the earlier generation EW systems of the Indian Navy. Prime Minister laid the foundation stone of the 400 crore project at Jhansi node of UP Defence Industrial Corridor, meant to set up a plant to produce propulsion systems for the anti-tank guided missile. The light combat helicopters, drones and the electronic warfare system are considered a game changer for India's arsenal, sending a strong message to adversaries Pakistan and China.
While the focus of the event was self-reliance in defense, but there was also political messaging ahead of UP elections. But the Prime Minister made it very clear that the armed forces have no other choice but to rely on equipment that is made in India. And that's the reason why the Defence Ministry has also come out with a list of 200 items that cannot be exported. This is a big thrust to ensure Atmanirbharta or self-reliance. With camera person Pradeep Gupta, Abhishek Bhalla in Jhansi for India Today.
Armed with a 20mm cannon, 70mm rocket, air-to-air and air-to-ground anti-tank guided missiles, the light combat helicopter is seen as a game changer when inducted in the Indian Air Force in adequate numbers. The Hindustan Aeronautics Limited chief told India Today that HAL is in a position to hand over at least 15 helicopters to the Indian Air Force in the next 1 year. These light combat helicopters have been deployed in extreme high altitude battlefield of eastern Ladakh to fly alongside the Apache helicopters since August 2020.
It's true, the light combat helicopter can do what no other combat helicopter can. It can operate from India's high-altitude border battlefields in Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh while still carrying meaningful weapon loads.
सबसे बढ़िया स्पेशलिटी है कि ये हमारे देश के लिए बना है। जैसे हमारे देश में बहुत अलग-अलग किस्म के टेरेन्स हैं, ऑल्टीट्यूड्स पे हिमालय की, ये आराम से ऑपरेट कर सकता है और हमारे ट्रूप्स को सपोर्ट कर सकता है। और दूसरे लोगों के पास कोई ऐसा कोई हथियार नहीं है जो इसके अगेंस्ट फील्ड कर सकते हैं।
This has to be seen against the backdrop of the Kargil war. That was way back then when we had attack helicopters. They couldn't come up to those altitudes because of performance limitations. That was when the Air Force wanted a weapon system with capability to reach those altitudes.
Sitting on the tarmac here in Bengaluru, this is one of 4 light combat helicopters so far built. The light combat helicopter is built to seek and destroy. And when it comes to that, this helicopter is formidably armed. With 70mm rocket pods, Mistral air-to-air missiles from France, a 20mm chin-mounted cannon, and the capability to deploy an anti-tank missile like the Indian Helena or German Pars 3.
The weapons are giving us good standoff capability. You're looking at rockets, air-to-ground rockets, which have been integrated with also a growth potential in terms of laser-pointed rockets and air-to-ground missiles. You have the gun, a very accurate 20mm gun, which is slave to the pilot sight.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Make in India defence programme hasn't really taken off in the large-scale way that it perhaps was anticipated to. But helicopter programs like the light combat helicopter are proof that making in India has to be the way of the future. We're now going to show you the other helicopter programs by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, all of these developed and tested here in India. The LCH is a true blue made in India combat helicopter, the lightest in the world, and when produced at full rate, it will be among the most cost-effective. While Pakistan has ordered the Turkish-built T-129 attack and China builds the Z-10, the LCH will evolve into a far more reliable machine once in operational service, mostly because the demands that will be made on it. All that remains now is for the government to open its doors to the first combat helicopter specifically built for India.
So the light combat helicopter is now battle ready. India Today brings you up close and personal with India's new Hellbird. India Today, in fact, is the only channel to fly on board the tandem seating war machine. India Today's executive editor Shivarur travelled to Bengaluru and brings us this exclusive report.
Say namaste to the light combat helicopter. It doesn't have a formal name yet, but it's already fit and ready for the fight. Developed and test flown for nearly a decade by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, the light combat helicopter is not just made in India, but custom built for India's unique battlefield conditions. From the deserts of Rajasthan to the super high altitudes of Ladakh. But what better way to get acquainted with the light combat helicopter than by taking a spin in one? I was invited by HAL's test team to strap into this helicopter and get a never-before taste of what this Swadeshi combat chopper is truly all about. India Today has been invited to be the first journalist team to fly in and experience the light combat helicopter developed and tested by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. This is India's first attack helicopters. It has missiles, it has rockets, it has guns, and we happen to be the first ever media crew who's going to get a taste of the light combat helicopter. For a flight in the LCH, I have to get into the full pilot kit. From overalls to flying boots. Joined by HAL test pilot Wing Commander Subhash John, we walk out onto the airfield to the waiting helicopter, soaking in the unforgiving Bengaluru sun. And it is here that I receive a crucial part of the flying experience I'm about to have. A combat flying helmet equipped with a helmet-mounted sight. an electro-optical system used by pilots to point various weapons at their targets. But more on that in just a bit. First, the inside of the light combat helicopter itself. Constructed with a sleek tandem cockpit rather than the usual side-by-side seats on other helicopter types, the LCH from the outside sports a stealthy front profile that also gives adversaries a smaller, harder target to latch onto. Wing Commander Subhash and I belt up, and then the engines come on. The rumble of the twin Shakti turboshaft engines come to life, rapidly turning the rotors into a steady chop. The helicopter is now ready to taxi out. With all checks done and cleared by air traffic control, the LCH gently lifts off. In airspace over Bengaluru, the light combat helicopter is put through a series of maneuvers, demonstrating its agility in the air and carefully customized flying qualities. The effortless handling that Wing Commander Subhash demonstrates at low altitude validates the years of tough flight testing that has gone into refining the LCH into the flying machine it is today. Returning to the tarmac after a 25-minute flight, I've just had the most personal possible tryst with an aircraft that stands on the threshold of Indian military service.
But what will India's future attack helicopters look like? From the Apaches to the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited built Rudra helicopter, let's now take a look at the future war machines that actually promise to be a real game changer for combat and combat support.
This is a real mix. From the world's most modern attack helicopter to a fully Indian attack helicopter. From a formidable Soviet-era attack helicopter to a utility helicopter kitted out for combat. This is India's present. But elsewhere in the world, the future of attack helicopters is already being scripted. The US Army is speeding towards choosing from among 5 futuristic concepts that will be the world's next big attack helicopter. In weeks from now, the US Army will eliminate 3 contenders from the Future Attack Reconnaissance Aircraft contest and fund the development of 2 helicopter prototypes built by the world's most experienced helicopter companies. The concept art has already taken the aviation world by storm. The first to unveil itself, the Bell Invictus. Then comes the Raider X, built by Sikorsky, the company founded by helicopter pioneer Igor Sikorsky and the same firm that will soon supply MH-60 Romeo helicopters to the Indian Navy. And finally, Boeing's yet unnamed contender in the competition. Boeing, builder of the legendary Apache that's already in Indian Air Force service, will be pushing its experience in the field of armed helicopters to be a front-runner in the race. 3 futuristic helicopters, 3 firms with massive experience and their own major strengths. As this crucial tournament races towards a decision, the Indian Air Force and the Indian Army will be watching from a distance.
From light combat helicopters to cargo drones, India today has accessed exclusive images of Indian cargo drones to be deployed in Ladakh. Now, drones are being tested to operate at altitudes between 14,000 to 18,000 feet, and 48 of these drones have just been ordered by the Indian Army in a milestone fast-track contract to an Indian firm. missiles delivered by a swarm of drones to Chinese soldiers at high altitude. A propaganda video that was released at the peak of the India-China standoff in Ladakh. A move by China to taunt India and highlight India's lack of such a capability. And while the Chinese were certainly right, India has taken the taunt constructively. And Battlecry has the exclusive scoop on how India has reacted. What you're looking at here is a fully made in India cargo drone for high altitude troops, seen here being tested in the forbidding terrain of Ladakh. 48 of these drones have just been ordered by the Indian Army in a milestone fast-track contract to Indian firm Rafe M-Fiber. These drones, called MR-20, are capable of carrying loads of up to 20 kilograms. And in thin air of extreme high altitude, that's a huge amount. Operating individually or in groups, each drone can carry items that include food, fuel, medical supplies, emergency equipment, weapons, ammunition, and anything else that troops may require in forward areas in high altitude. The use of these drones will also drastically cut down the need for helicopter flights that are inherently risky to pilots. And unmanned drones mean more deliveries can be conducted per day with no crew fatigue. The utility of such drones is not difficult to imagine. And with a startup fleet of 48, the Indian Army will be able to serve several forward posts with items they need, forming a robust air bridge that becomes a powerful supply chain. The MR-20 drones will begin deliveries shortly to the Indian Army. The company that makes them is among a slew of cutting-edge firms serving the needs of a future battlefield and is working closely with the Army to get set for a new paradigm in military logistics. Drones for delivery will soon be a part of daily life, with companies like Amazon, FedEx and UPS embracing such technology for a new delivery mantra. And while Ladakh will be the first playground for this new capability, expect cargo drones to spread wide in the armed forces in the months and years ahead. Bureau Report, India Today. The Indian Army has also placed an order for indigenous switch unmanned aerial vehicles meant for day and night surveillance in high altitude areas. Now, Switch UAV once again is an indigenous system built to cater to the most demanding surveillance operations of the Indian Air Force, and these drones, built by the private sector on specifications given by the Army, are also being handed over to the Indian Armed Forces.
In a landmark move for Atmanirbharta in defense, the Indian Army has awarded a historic deal worth nearly 130 crore to an Indian company to supply military drones for troops deployed in the Ladakh high-altitude friction points. The Switch drone, seen here in video footage of trials conducted last year, will be built by its maker Idea Forge in Bengaluru and supplied in large numbers to the Army very quickly. Weighing less than 7 kilograms and with a flight time of 2 hours, these drones will be launched by Army troops or special forces and can conduct surveillance and intelligence gathering missions at ranges out to 15 kilometers and altitudes of over 4,000 meters, allowing Indian troops to keep a flexible, fully Indian eye on the other side when necessary.
Idea Forge UAVs are built like a bird and tested like a tank. This procurement is a testimony to this. The trial saw about a dozen Indian and global companies compete to meet the customer's operational requirements. Idea Forge's Switch UAV was the only product that could meet the expectations as well as exceed them.
The Switch is a hybrid drone in the sense that it takes off vertically like a helicopter and then transitions into level flight like an airplane. It's the first major Indian contract for an Indian drone. India has almost always otherwise imported drones for surveillance. While the Indian Army has used small numbers of Indian drones in the past, including Chinese drones, this massive contract for fully indigenous drones is a major boost for the Vocal for Local campaign in defense and the Prime Minister's clarion call for self-reliance. This is especially true since these drones were chosen above offerings from abroad, including Israel. The drones will enter service in a matter of weeks and will be in the hands of Indian Army troops in eastern Ladakh. Bureau Report, India Today.
Drones also promise to be game changers in future battlefields, and we'll track that story closely. But that is all I have time for on India First this Friday evening.